Hey, what's going on there, folks? Jeff coming to you from Pure Bowling here in Ephrata, PA. And tonight we're going to be having a Talk About a Tuesday segment. And I'm going to be joined here, hopefully, at some point by my friend Matt Farber. We are in two different time zones, so just kind of hoping that he gets the message here and realizes that it's 7 o'clock his time, 8 o'clock ours. But regardless of the fact, thought I'd just come on here live, kind of, get the segment started, talk a little bit about, maybe what we're going to talk to with Matt. And a lot of that is going to be revolving around today is going to be about the mental aspect of bowling. So a lot of times we'll do segments and we'll talk about, specific bowling balls. Recently we had Coach Brian O'Keefe on, and we talked, kind of bowling and lane play strategies along that point, a lot about the physical aspect of the game. But we did talk a little bit about the mental aspect, and I thought, what a great segment that would be to kind of discuss here in an open forum what we feel are some of the, the key aspects of the mental portion of the bowling game and how critical it is to being successful on the lanes. So it's no hidden secret that, every great player that's out there that has been a champion has learned to kind of harness the mental fortitude to focus in, strive, not only with their shot making, but being within the moment at all times when they're on the lanes. Okay. So, I'm no different than any other player that's out there. And, I have actually, once I get to talk to Matt here a little bit, maybe we'll get in a little more depth, but I thought it'd be a good way to kind of explain, how any type of player can essentially go through ups and downs and some mental roadblocks, if you will. And, what some of the things you can focus on doing to get you past that. We can often say that we've been in slumps. A lot of times when we say that, it is from a physical aspect, but in reality, what we're looking at sometimes is that it can come down to being a mental issue as well. Okay. So, this year I returned to the lanes for the most part. I'd say is one of the first years that I felt that I was able to compete at a level where, my body was as healthy as what my mind was. And, locally, whether it be in leagues, tournament play, small things we've done here at the center, I've seen some early success and really feel like I've making some gigantic strides to, return to a higher level of play. I've battled a multitude of injuries over the years between the knee and the back that's really kept me off the lanes, and always felt that, I was always bowling hurt, and, that can be trying on you mentally as well. But what I will tell you is that, now I'm healthy, I'm back on the lanes, and I really am seeing some, really good shot making when it comes to, the league environment. But one of the key things that I wanted to talk about tonight is how that varies so very differently from league play to tournament play. All of us here that are following the feed for the most part probably bowl in some type of league. And, I would say that the conditions for the most part in the centers most of us bowl in are, fairly easy, very scoreable. You see a lot of honor scores each week. A lot of the individuals in the league are 200 plus average bowlers. And, we physically bowl in a center where, we have a really high friction surface, but I will tell you, it's not that hard to navigate to the pocket. And, in terms, if I was just looking at average, this year has been pretty good so far. So through about 11 weeks, outside of last night, I was right around the 230 mark. And, for me in a league setting, that's pretty good. I always felt like league forced me to make angles with my hand that I was trying to get away from that I did when I was younger in my career and struggled so much at the higher level. But what I quickly realized is as good as I felt I was physically executing, what I've seen the last few weeks, I've shoot up and I've gone out and bowled some regionals, PBA regional events. And, to say I'm a little disappointed would be an understatement. Feeling that I'm prepared, putting in some more work on the lanes, on the physical aspect of it. I felt I could go out there and, compete, feel like I could, I should be in the number, in terms of checks and, making runs into finals. But what I quickly realized, after two of the events for the most part, I had two performances that were, less than subpar. And it really got me thinking about, what is the difference? What am I doing different mentally on that stage than I am when I'm bowling league? And one of the biggest things that I started talking with my coach and the coaches that I work with is I feel like when I'm at league, obviously you have a ton of free friction to your right. The patterns tend to be a little softer, so you have more miss room. So, your arm swing in most times feels a little more free. Okay. So maybe the thought process in the mind is not feeling like you have to be so perfect when you're throwing a shot. So the release becomes a little free, and it feels like my accuracy and my release is way cleaner when I'm bowling in the league environment. So, when I went out and, we're bowling at the regional level, and we're bowling on ratios that are, lower ratio patterns. What we quickly realized is that, when I started to see a little bit of either hang to my right or felt like I had to manipulate the ball a little more through the front part of the lane, I quickly gave feedback to my coaches and talking through this. And my sentiment on it was saying, hey, I feel like at that level, I'm starting to lock up. The swing is locked up. I don't feel fluent. I feel like there's physical breakdowns there. And I kept going back and saying that word over and over and over again. And I was saying, physically, I'm doing this. Physically, I'm doing that. And, we got into a good conversation about, how much of it truly is physical. Okay. So when you're in a situation where you feel like maybe you don't have, your best stuff, our tendency is that the wheels up in the brain start to turn even faster. We have a tendency to turn it on and press. We start overthinking. We start giving our own mind feedback, whether that is, internally processing or, externally telling ourselves, okay, oh, well, you did this on that shot and this on that shot. So, there's a lot of what I refer to when I'm coaching others as noise. Okay. And that noise or white noise that you hear, it definitely, impacts how you're going to perform on the lane from a physical standpoint as well. So, when I focused in and I really started thinking about that, I said, you know what, I think it's a great point. And I think it would be one that I would love to talk to, the customers and the individuals that turn into these programs all the time to, really talk through process and, how we go about competing on any type of condition to have more consistency when it comes to the mental fortitude that we need to excel. All right. So for me, one of the main things I'm going to practice on, this week is trying to truly harness and focus in on the things I can control. And I'm going to be the first to tell you here tonight that, from the coaching standpoint, when I'm Coach Smith, all right, I feel that the type of information that I'm giving to my players that I'm working with, whether it would have been on tour or, with my local players here or to a friend or to a client, is very useful. And I need to actually take a step back and listen to my own thoughts. And what I mean by that is if I'm going to preach it, I need to follow it myself. So one of the biggest things that, I'm constantly saying to the players is, you need to stay within yourself, stay within the moment, and focus on the things you can actually control. Okay. So when I talk about noise, one of the first things when we talk through this was, what noise is happening at, maybe the regional level that I'm not executing. And I'm going to tell you one of the first things that come up in my mind. And I'm going to speak openly about this because I don't feel there's any other way of doing it is. But in the East region this year, there has been pretty much week in and week out we've been getting our heads kicked in by the left-handers. Okay, not taking anything away from them at all. I promise you that I'm not that type of individual. But I found myself, allowing myself to get a little frustrated watching as, each pattern length, a lot of them they were putting us on were, started with a 3. A lot of them were 30-foot, patterns. And then the longest one we bowled on was a longer 40-foot pattern, but it was very low volume, not a lot of 2-to-2 loads. So out was in play. So, started looking around and seeing how, the left was able to kind of just basically stay on top of it and, play, 2-3 on pretty much any one of the centers we were in and stay left the entire time. And then the other aspect of it, and again, is that it felt like if you were on the right-hand side of the lane, you had to have your thumb out of the ball to essentially get the bowling ball to go through the pins correctly. And, making a shape or, increasing axis rotation to get the bowling ball through the pins correctly. And when you're honest with yourself about those things, I think it goes a long way to start understanding the process of, man, I am really focusing on things that is completely out of my control. Okay. What I can focus on doing from a mental aspect is understanding my game and understanding the things that I can control. And that is the next shot that I'm going to throw. The other aspect is I can, mentally, see some frustration sometimes when each one of these patterns too, we're seeing just a multitude of urethane going down the lane. And, as we all know, I grew up with urethane, I have no problem throwing it. I utilize it when needed, but this past week, I got frustrated seeing so much of it that I refused to throw it. And you know what? It was the play. And the play, when you think about it on the mental aspect of it, was I mentally was not strong enough to look past how I wanted to bowl versus how I needed to bowl. Right? Anybody that's going to be a champion, anybody that's going to excel at what we do, is going to have to be versatile from a physical standpoint and also from the mental standpoint. So what do you do? How do you process moving forward? Okay. So all that white noise that was in the back of me thinking about, what I wish I could do, as the type of player that I am. And instead of focusing in on just making good shots, proper balance, and posting my shot each time, and then keeping that mental toughness to just simply run down a spare as needed. Okay. Because I can tell you right now, when you're pressing and, you maybe aren't hitting the pocket or you're splitting and then you leave, a single pin up, and the mental aspect isn't there, you end up, costing yourself another frame or another 11 pins because you went up and you missed a 10 pin that, if you're bowling out on tour, you need to be making them over, 98% of the time. But how do you, as a person, convince yourself to essentially be mentally tough? And I think the best way that I can explain it to everyone else is that you have first got to have confidence in what you are doing. All right. So in order to be strong mentally, you have to believe in the process of who you are and what you're going to do on the lanes and how you're going to throw the bowling ball, and completely stop caring about what everybody else is doing. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not telling you, to put the blinders on, that you don't watch, the pairs in front of you or, what players are doing to your right and your left or wherever you're going to cross, depending on the tournament. But what I mean is that to really stay within yourself and focus on you and you only. All right. I've had good conversations with players, especially when we get to match play portion. All right. Sometimes there's nothing worse than seeing maybe an individual cross over and get a lucky strike, or they cave to face in. Maybe they're, kind of, they got a ton of room and they bleed one out and comes back and they get, lucky double, miracle triple. We've all been there. And, we've all felt that stings a little bit. But guess what? We can't control it, right? I can't control what they're doing. I can only control what I do. So I, as an individual and as the bowler this time, had to take a step back and say, hold on a second. This is what I need to do to excel in the lanes. So take that step backwards and say, hey, all right, I'm going to go and I'm going to bowl the pins. I'm going to be the person that is just going to bowl within myself and trust what I've worked on all week long and go out and execute. I mentioned about, the swing locked up and things like that. But again, that's from me trying to make something work that wasn't there. So again, like this weekend, like if the play was urethane, all right, that was what I was given, and that's what's going to get a check, or it's going to get you to the next round or give you a deep run into match play. That's what I need to do. All right. Hey, looks like Matt had some technical difficulties, but I'm going to bring him into the stream right now. Looks like he got on there. Mr. Farber, can you hear me?
I sure can. Can you hear me okay, Jeff? No? Hold one second.
Matt, I got you.
Okay, great.
It was my headphones. It's okay.
All righty, man. Well, sorry for the delay, man. I've got I've been having technical difficulties all day. I've been trying to figure it out. I didn't realize my phone was on Do Not Disturb, so when you texted me, I didn't see it. And I've got a massive case of the hiccups right now. So if I sound super ridiculous during this whole thing, I apologize to everybody.
Yeah, it's totally fine. Matt, there's no secret that I love to talk, so it wasn't a big deal. I just, I jumped on here. I jumped on here and I just basically started talking. And you know what? I'll kind of give you a little tidbit on what I was talking about, and that is the fact that what we talked about online the other day, and you saw, was I was talking about myself. And, I was talking a little bit about some of the mental breakdowns that I feel I've been encountering lately. And, being open and honest with the individuals out there that it doesn't matter what level you're competing on, that, there has to be a moment to kind of step back and understand the white noise and to really focus in on, the aspects that we can control. And by all means, to stop being a stubborn 42-year-old that, just didn't want to bowl the way I needed to bowl, this last weekend. And, but, the entire reason, or the segment that I had brought you on and kind of asked you to join with, Matt, is, I thought it was an awesome segment to bring you on because you do some pretty amazing stuff on Mondays. I know you do a Mental Mondays segment on Backstage Bowling, which we've talked a lot about on this program as well. And what better person to kind of maybe go over and, give some of your insight on what you think makes, a strong mental bowling game and maybe some things to focus on for individuals that are out there that don't want to just work on the physical aspect. And man, it is killing me, man. Those hiccups, they look awful.
These hiccups are brutal right now. They're absolutely brutal. And it's just funny because I do the little hop every single time. But yeah, I really, first off, thanks for having me on. I hope that my little delay doesn't prevent you from having me on in the future. But I really think also I want to thank you for letting Backstage Bowling Team come on here, over time and talking about Backstage Bowling because it really is something that we're proud of and we're really enjoying it. And we really appreciate you being a part of it as well. So thank you for that. So
sure.
When it comes to the mental game and when it comes to, building a really strong mental game, I think the first thing that people really need to know is that the mental game that you have and the things that the skill set that you currently have mentally, physically, however you want to look at it, is that you're not stuck with it. It's not something that you're stuck with forever. And I think in sports, specifically in bowling, because bowling tends to be behind the times, I think that typically most people think, okay, I'm not a confident bowler, so I'm just not going to be a confident bowler, right? I'm just not. Or, I don't know how to be present. I'm always thinking about the future. I'm always thinking about the past. I don't know how to focus just on one shot. So that's how I'm always going to be. And for most of my career as a bowler, my young career, I felt that way. I felt like I was always searching for the tools to help me become confident because I always felt I lacked confidence. I always felt like I put myself down and I always told myself I wasn't good enough. And I wanted to change that, but I never knew how. And I read some books, and that's great and all, but there weren't really many great books that I came across that really gave me those tools to use to implement into my game. And so I think that when it comes to everybody's different, of course, but when it comes to building a really solid mental game, I think probably the most important thing to train is your confidence. I think that if you're not confident, it's very, very hard to be successful in anything, right? If you're on the press drilling a ball and you're like, I might miss this line, I might not miss this line, right? You might be able to drill a ball, but it might take you an hour. And then if it takes you an hour to drill a ball, you're going to lose customers, right? So if you're not confident in anything that you do, it's really hard to be very, very successful. So I think the number one thing is confidence. And the thing that I always struggled with confidence was confidence is one of those tricky things where it's like, okay, I need to be confident to be successful, but I can't be successful until I'm confident. So it's like the chicken or the egg. Do I become successful and then I become confident? Or do I become confident and then become successful? But how do I become confident without having success, right? It's just like never-ending question, this never-ending cycle. And the good news is that you can break that cycle, right? You can break that cycle of, okay, I'm not confident, but I can become successful. So how can I do that? And the answer is, one of the biggest answers is visualization. We talk about it a lot in backstage bowling, and I think it's widely talked about now within sports, is visualization and mental imagery. And by using tools like visualization and mental imagery, you really can change your self-image, right? How you see yourself. And ultimately, how you see yourself is going to be directly correlated to your confidence level. So if you see yourself as missing a spare, you're not going to be confident when you're shooting your spares, right? If you see yourself as a type of bowler to be clutch and double in the 10th frame, when it comes time to do that, you're going to be clutch and you're going to have a really good chance of doubling the 10th frame because you're confident in your game, right? So that's, I think, the first part, Jeff, I think is confidence. I think that's extremely important. I think building a really strong sense of self-awareness is also really important. Being able to hold yourself accountable and say, okay, it's me messing up. It's me making the mistakes. It's me needing to change. Because a lot of time, great, we took care of that confidence and we built that confidence, and I'm so confident in my game that I can execute my shot every single time. And we all know those bowlers that think they never miss their target, Mike Flanagan. And we all know those people that think that they go up there and they split boards every shot. And then they're like, I couldn't bowl because, the lanes are 80 years old and it's stupid and nobody should have to bowl on that. Or I didn't win because the stupid pins are brand new, so I couldn't carry, right? Or, because somebody kicked the ball return in my backswing and made me miss, or made me split, whatever it is, right? So I think balancing out the confidence with the self-awareness is really, really important. And then I think working on breathing, as weird as it sounds, is really important. Working on taking deep, conscious breaths and being able to calm yourself down and become present moment focused. The presence, your presence is the most important thing in the world in anything. So I think being able to be as present as possible, is really, really important.
Yeah, and I think it's funny that you actually said about the breathing aspect, because we had a good conversation, and one of my good friends, Joe Pelusic, in the East here, we're, depending on what state we're bowling in, we're actually, mandated to wear a mask even while we're bowling. So on the approach, can't even pull it down for that. And, that's an interesting one because, with individuals that use breathing as part of their pre-shot routine, and they use it for, tempo purposes and just kind of settling in on being ready to go up and make a shot with a mask on, it's completely different. And like I said, I had this conversation with Joe, and, he brought it up because, man, I'm really struggling out there because, breathing is so important to me, to have as part of my pre-shot routine, just to kind of settle the body in and not feel tense, or, to kind of go up there and have, the loose swing, which I was talking, a lot about before you were able to hop on. And So, all those things that you're talking about, I think kind of just reiterated some of the things I had started off the broadcast with, which is, staying within yourself and having that overall confidence. And, I like to be self-aware. So I had spent a lot of time talking to the folks here about being aware of all that noise that I had allowed to kind of come in and start making me feel like, I didn't have a chance, or it wasn't, focused in and being confident in what I was going to do to execute what needed to be done. And, I wasn't picking on left-handers. I wasn't picking on two-handers, but, darn well, I was focused in on, man, I wish I had that, right? I wish I could play 2-3, or I wish I could create that axis rotation down lane, or never grab a shot. It's not, those aren't things that, are going to make us a more confident or a better player. So all those things you just kind of said, kind of reiterated exactly what, from self-awareness, that we as players have to do. Okay. So, I talked a lot about, I got to take the coaching hat off sometimes, or I guess I should put the coaching ears on to myself, because what I preach has got to be the way that I go about it as well. And I'm very much guilty, which is why in the backstage group, I put it on there for the coaches to remark on it, because I thought it was so important for the others in the group to understand that even if you're an advanced coach, or, a decent bowler, or, you're excelling places, we all go through the same things. And we all need that reassurance and the help from other coaches, other eyes, other perspectives. For yourself, I mean, I would say you're way more versed in the mental aspect of it, because you're so ultra focused in on it, and it shows because of that confidence that you had in yourself. Because let me give you an example, and I don't want to keep cutting Matt off here and not let him talk, but the example would be like when I watch Matt as a player, okay, and I saw him at, whether it was events or Team USA trials or anything along those lines, my instinct of Matt watching him bowl was, wow, this kid throws it incredible. All right. But not knowing Matt personally, I have no idea what he's got going on internally that, maybe he needs to take that next step to, even for one, believe in himself that he is at that level and that caliber, because he may be fighting mentally to get past that next step. Man, there is a lot of really stinking good bowlers that have not won on the highest level. And I guarantee it's not because they're not making great shots.
Yeah, I think, that's the interesting thing, is that we never know the struggles or what's going through other players' heads, right? We always only know it within ourselves. And so when we look out and we see great players out there, we kind of just instantly assume that they have everything together, right? They've got it all together. You look at the best bowlers in the world and you're like, they never struggle with confidence. They didn't ever step up and shoot spare and be like, man, I'm not feeling so good about this one. This is a little shaky, right? You just think, oh, they're lined in, they're lasered in. It's the best in the world. But the fact of the matter is that everybody struggles with something, right? Everybody works on dealing with somebody. Everybody's got their demons inside their head, all the unfortunate memories that you've had over the years, right? Like, you've missed a 10-pin once to lose a match, and now every single time you leave a 10-pin, you get like flashbacks to that moment, right? And like you said, every single person struggles with that. So while you are watching me bowl, and I may be trying to make myself look confident and, speak my confidence to existence, right? There would be times where I'd be getting up there and be like, man, I have no idea where this ball is going to go. I really don't. I don't feel like I'm going to throw it good. The spare is standing up there, and I really don't feel like I'm going to make it. And that's the thing, is that, like, if bowling, if all it took in bowling was that, if all it took to be good in bowling was throwing it good, then we would have 3,000 people from around the world that were the best in the world. Mm-hmm. Because there's thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people that throw it great. And like you said, we all see those people that throw it amazing. And even some people go out there and they're one-hit wonders, and they have one great performance and they win a title, or win a couple titles in a year, and then you never hear from them again. And I am a firm believer that the main component to longevity, to having a lot of success out on the lanes, is mental fortitude, like mental organization, mental strength, whatever you want to call it. Having those components to be strong mentally is everything, if you really want to be successful for a long period of time.
Absolutely. And, maybe it opens up a couple questions that I'll ask you first. And then by all means, we'll have individuals that'll probably come in and want to ask some questions here. But, Matt, you kind of, maybe a twofold question here. So you said you read a ton of books and, things along that. How about for the individuals out there? Like, if you had to name one or two books or papers or anything you want to call them that you thought were maybe the most impactful or kind of gave you that aha moment to really focus in on the mental side of it, what would those be?
Yeah. The interesting thing is that I said that reading all these books really didn't do me any good. And then there was a book that I did find that changed everything for me. I went from quitting bowling and having not bowled competitively in a year, to making Team USA in just 4 months. And I give pretty much all the credit in the world to that book, and that system. And that's called With Winning in Mind by a gentleman of the name Lanny Basham. And he is a Olympic gold medalist, world champion, world record holder in rifle shooting. And he has a system that he teaches. And the reason why I really liked it and I really valued it was, it wasn't one of these books where it just talked about the issues and that was it. It was a book that talked about these issues and gave you solutions to them. And the thing that really had me buy into it was the fact that not only he was an athlete that used it, but that there are many athletes that go out there and they do the same things and they use it and they're very successful. So I bought in, I read it front to back. I really focused, I honed in on the tools and techniques that he discusses in the book. And specifically, the thing that really benefited me was, again, I was a player that always struggled with confidence. And finally, in that book, I found the way to address that issue. And I found tools and techniques to address that issue. And those are tools and techniques that I still use today, when it comes to boosting my confidence just in overall life. Even though I'm not bowling very much anymore, it really, it really changed my life as a whole. And so that was really exciting. So anybody that's looking for any sort of mental books, really looking to change their careers, maybe even change their lives, I would certainly go out there and look at that book called With Winning in Mind, by the gentleman named Lanny Basham. Certainly an incredible read. It's not extremely long, but breaks down the mental game into three different components that work really well together and make a lot of sense.
Awesome. Awesome stuff there. And, obviously, a lot of individuals are on here. We watch TV and we watch the pros at the highest level in bowling and or other sports. But you've obviously, even though you're not bowling quite as much anymore, you've been around bowling a long period of time. You're connected within the industry, knowing a lot of the national guys, things along those lines. So you obviously got either to compete with them or watch them compete. So from a mental aspect, who would you say, like, if you were a person at home was looking at somebody that is excelling or maybe having a great career, who's that person out on tour, female, male, it doesn't matter what it is, that you feel really just, kind of exudes and portrays, just a solid mental game, that really is what separates them from some of the other players?
Well, I think that's kind of a layup, a really easy question, and I'm going to go with the chalk here, and that's Jason Belmonte. I said earlier, the key to longevity and to being successful over a long period of time really is that mental fortitude and the having the mental components to be successful in that mental game. And I think Belmo portrays that perfectly, honestly. And I think, sure, Belmo's a great shot maker. Belmo's a great spare shooter. Belmo's a great split shooter. He does a lot of things amazingly well, just like all of the other best bowlers in the world do, right? But if you watch him bowl on TV and you watch him bowl throughout the event, how he always carries himself, how he thinks of himself. Sometimes, he'll talk about jokes with Bill, like, man, I wish I could be you so I could watch myself bowl for a day, right? Like making comments like that. And although he's obviously kidding around 99% of it, there is that 1% of truth in it where he really is confident in his abilities. You watch him on the shows, he never gets too high, he never gets too low. he's one of the few pros that is extremely consistent with his pre-shot routine. He always uses the ball return. He puts his ball on his leg and he kind of puts his hands over the air. When he puts his fingers into the ball, he puts his fingers in and he kind of like lets his thumb sit out on the ball for a little bit, and then he flattens his hand out and holds the ball, and he does it every shot. And so I think, if there's one specific bowler that comes in mind when you're talking about long-term longevity performance, it's Belmo. Another close second on the PBA tour would be Duke. Rick comes in and says Duke. Duke's one of the mentally strongest guys that you could probably find out on the lanes. One moment that comes to mind was, I think there was a video or a documentary that was filmed about bowling in some space. I can't remember, but Norm Duke was bowling Ryan Simonelli when Ryan Simonelli first came on the scene, and Norm Duke was down in the best of 7 match, and I think Norm had to win both best of 7s because he was the second seed or something along those lines. Long story short, Norm was down like 3-0. He was about to get swept or something along those lines, and he came back to win the match, and he just got dialed in and lined in, and he's in his mid-50s now, and he's still winning against the big boys. He's not bowling on the senior tour and only winning on the senior tour. He's on the real deal. He's making the PBA playoffs. He's still the real deal, and that takes a lot of mental strength.
Mental strength, and and I know this is about, and Rick's already getting in there. I was going to say the same thing. It was at the World Series. That is correct. I was going to. And I think that was back when Sim was throwing.
He was throwing Storm. It was his first time using urethane. His first time throwing. He was throwing a pitch black or natural, I think. Actually.
Yeah, I think it was a natural. It was either a natural or a natural pearl back then.
Yep.
But yeah, came in with the chime in on that one. But and Norm, and not just from the mental aspect, but we spent time the other night. I was on with an individual last night from my staff, and we were talking about styles and things along those lines too, and how they essentially the styles that are still hitting him out there in their older age: Parker, Duke, Walter Ray, simplicity. So not only do you have you have to be mentally tough to win as much as they have. The thing I think I like the most out of that is to feel like, as I'm talking about the mental aspect, is the game is evolving and the game is changing, but these individuals are still managing. They're not winning as much as they did at one point, but they're still managing to do it their way and or adapt. And whether that's from a physical aspect or mental, and understanding how to stay within themselves. I thought it was pretty awesome this past weekend. I had the awesome opportunity to sit down and talk to Johnny Petragula for about 2 hours and just talk bowling, and just amazing individual to not just tell stories, but to really tell you the life experience and how things were and how it's evolved. And could you imagine looking through that man's eyes for all the years he's been competitive and is still competitive at 74, I think he is. I think we were figuring out last night, in all the decades that he's won in and cashed in, and to see the game through his eyes and how it's evolved. Unbelievable. I mean, it's just, his style is timeless.
Yeah. I mean, he's won in, 5 different decades, I think it is. He's won in the, I forget what crazy stat it is that Johnny has, but he won an event one time, and I think he officially put him into winning in 5 different decades. And that's ridiculous, right? Like, just absolutely ridiculous to think about. So, those guys, and you mentioned Walter in there, and you want to talk about like mental fortitude and mental strength and having like a good sense of self-awareness, knowing that his one-handed game isn't cutting it, so he adapts and he picks up a two-handed game, right? I mean, you can say whatever you want about him. You can say it doesn't look great. You can say that he's not great at doing it. And I will give that man all the credit in the world, because it doesn't matter to me, right, whether or not he wins 10 titles bowling two-handed or he wins a Player of the Year bowling two-handed. He's got the mental strength and fortitude at that age. They say you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Well, watch Walter bowl with 2 hands and hook the lane. Maybe not as much as Belmo, certainly getting, and you can't have anything but massive amounts of respect, a true competitor in Walter, and somebody that, does. Everybody says that they'll do whatever it takes to win. And then when you come to adversity, you see the people that are really willing to do anything that it takes to win, and Walter is one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think it's a good way to ad lib because I put this in the thing. So, I mean, Matt, it's no secret. I know you said you're not bowling very much, but last I saw you was, I guess, probably about 2 months ago at this point. We were out visiting and you had started bowling two-handed. So how did you land there, Matt? I mean, what was that trigger to say, all right, I had confidence in myself as a one-handed player, and I would say, one of the pinnacles for you obviously probably was making Team USA. That's got to be amazing. But what was your trigger? Why the change?
I think the change really stems from I've always had a number of issues over the years with my game that I was just always battling. We mentioned it earlier, and I always mention it, and I always had those. I always had those issues where I had swing issues. My swing would always bump out to the right, no matter how much I would work on it. It was one of those things I always had to keep in check. I always had I really struggled with a fit because when I was younger, I had a really poor fit. And so it messed my hand up. It jacked my hand up. It made my thumb all funky shapes and sizes and, places that it shouldn't be. And it made it really difficult to get a good fit. And it's no coincidence that the 1 year that I really got a really solid fit, Brian O'Keefe drilled me these ridiculous diamond shaped thumb holes and they fit beautifully. And it's no secret that was the year I went on to make Team USA. I went on to win a national championship, but that was something I always struggled with. I always struggled with throwing it harder, and I always struggled with, getting airtime, lofting it. And
Mm-hmm.
I had 410, 420 RPMs, which not, Francois Lavoie is out there. He's not exactly strapping the holes off the ball. He's a tremendous bowler. It's just the overwhelming data will show that the best bowlers in the world right now are 460, 480 plus when it comes to RPMs. So putting all those things together, and then also when I was drilling balls, just dealing with the id system, Jeff, like dealing with switch grip, I don't care how good you are a ball driller. I'm gonna find a way to break the thing that you get from me. It's no disrespect to any of the companies out there. I'm a finicky, weird dude, and I'm gonna find a way to break stuff. I'm gonna find a way for things to be way more inconvenient than possible. And that was the thing for me. I was like, man, I don't want to keep having to struggle with this and keep messing this stuff up. And I don't want to have to, I always ovaled my fingers because I couldn't use grips because they would cut my fingers open. So my fingers were really big and ovular. So I would always have to, I would always have to, do like 5 or 6 cuts in both of my finger holes. And just the amount of time and effort it took, I was like, you know what? I'm done with this. I'm done with drilling thumb holes. I'm done with ovaling my fingers. I'm going to put 2 holes in the ball, throw some grips in there, adjust the pitches until I don't cut my fingers, and call it a day. So that, some of it's silliness and pure laziness, and some of it also is like, there's some sound logic there to it. But yeah, I practiced it for, about a couple of weeks. And then unfortunately I came down with COVID. Thankfully I'm okay now. But I did come down with COVID. So I stopped. Obviously I had to isolate. I had to, quarantine by myself. So I didn't I haven't really gotten the chance to get back out there. That happened about a little over a month ago. And so ever since then, I've kind of been working my way back, and now I've been traveling, pretty much. I did my quarantine period, and then, about a couple weeks after that, I started traveling again. So, it's really been a fun, exciting experience, but man, I always thought, I'm going to be honest, like I always thought two-handed bowling was easier than one-handed bowling just because those guys make it look so dang easy, right? Like you watch Belmo, I watch my buddy Chris Vi, you watch guys like Oscu, Kyle Troop, Simo, you watch all these guys and they just make it look so dang easy, dude. And then I get there and I'm throwing every third ball in the gutter, or I'm doing this weird thing where I'm like elbowing my knee on my follow through and I have no idea why. And so I think certainly, it's fun to do. I think I'm going to keep trying to do whenever I get back out on the lanes. But I'm kind of at a point in my life where it's like I'm really interested in the business side of things, and I'm really starting to try to start my professional career and hopefully get back to the sport of bowling with things like backstage bowling. And unfortunately, the time that it takes to get good at something, as you know, Jeff, time that it takes to get good on the lanes like those guys are, takes a lot of work and a lot of effort. So that's kind of where I'm at right now with my game. But I still have a lot of support in my corner, and I know that if I ever need any lessons, I could just drive a couple hours over to Pennsylvania and come give you a headache or two. So,
I
so it's
do
nice to
teach
know.
it. I do teach it. I get asked that all the time. Do you teach two-handed bowling? I'm like, yeah, I absolutely do. It's part of the evolution of the game. Do I think I'm going to go out there and do it? Probably not. I mean, I'm way younger than Walter, but I mean, at 42 and some of the knee issues in the back, I mean, I don't know that it's the smartest thing for me to do, but if I'm going to continue to support bowling, then I need to be part of the evolution to understand as a student and as a coach to, teach it in the proper manner, because it's all about the client being the best version of themselves. And, we see skill levels of two-handers from somebody that can't keep it on the lane to, advanced players. It's unique. I mean, it's tough, but for me, in a way, it's almost fun to teach it, because I myself can't do it, but I can see it. And that's, that's what it really comes down to, is, being able to help the individuals, and again, you're talking about backstage and thing, everybody that's in your group, everybody in that group is traditional one-handed players. I mean, outside of yourself for the most part, but I guarantee you, if there's questions that come up and, there's things on two-handed, there's going to be a learning curve for all those the advanced coaches in that group as well, because we're always learning the next thing for ourselves that we can pass on to our clients and our friends and the people that are competing. That's what it's about, folks. It's not about, one style or pushing that. It's about helping however you decide to throw the ball. I mean, what's the next way of throwing it? I mean, we've seen some pretty different styles of two-handed bowling as well that, I've seen people launching from their chest. And I mean, it's, heck, who knows? Maybe somebody's going to kick it down the lane at some point. I don't know. It could happen.
You do never know. And just when you think you've seen it all, you see a new bowling style and you're like, man, I haven't seen it all. Right. So there's a lot to see out there. And, bowling is an art form. Like we said, there's not one cookie cutter style. So, and two-handed bowling also hasn't really been around for all that long at a high level. So everybody's got to learn. We've got to learn more about it. We've got to learn more what does it really take to be successful? What are the key components to hone in on, just like in one-handed bowling? So it's going to be really interesting over the course of the next decade, I think.
Absolutely. Looks like the old lady was stopping by here. She wants to know what advice she would have for somebody who wants to work on mental toughness. What steps can they take towards improving it? So maybe a good way of asking that is, where do they start, Matt?
Yeah, it can be. It can be kind of like an overwhelming, an overwhelming experience at the start of it. I think the most important thing is really identifying what it is that you're struggling with. So for some people, it's confidence, right? For some people, it's anxiety. For some people, it's focus, right? Some people have a hard time focusing. So really honing in on what it is that you're struggling with is really, really important, because I could tell you, hey, confidence is the most important thing in bowling, right? And you can come to me and be like, dude, I'm as confident as ever. I think I'm going to hit my target every single time I release a ball. And I'm like, okay, well then, working on confidence doesn't really do us a whole lot. So I think, kind of really reflecting and being honest with yourself. Okay, when I'm bowling and I'm struggling, like, what is it that I'm really struggling with? Do I think I'm not going to make my spare, hit my target? Do I, am I so freaked out by the moment and I'm thinking about everything in the future that I'm, make myself so anxious? Am I focused on everybody else's scores and what they're doing, and that I'm not focusing on my game? So I need to improve my focus. And those are just three areas, three of the many, many, many areas of the mental game to work on. But I think that's the first step. I think the first step is, finding out what it is that you're struggling with. And then from there, trying to really discover those tools that, that will help with that process. So, right, if you're struggling with confidence, things you can look at are things like, visualization, mental imagery, mental recall. All of these, meditation is another one that will, it's a different type of mental imagery and visualization, but that can really help you quiet your mind, and also help you build that confidence. So I think things like that, looking at self-talk, how do you talk to yourself? Because your brain's going to believe whatever you want it to, whatever you tell it to. So if you tell yourself that you stink, you're going to stink, and your brain's going to believe that you stink. So those are some tools that you can use for confidence as well. If you're looking at improving things like focus, you can utilize different tools and techniques that are out there as well. There's things called focus grids, and you can use a focus grid to really hone in your focus. They're just grids of numbers that count from 0 to 100 or 1 to 100, 0 to 99, whatever it is that you want. And you go through and you cross the numbers off. And over time, as you learn to focus more and develop different strategies, you'll realize that the time it takes you to do it slows down, quickens, that your pace quickens and you do it quicker. And so, there's a tool out there for focus. We talk about anxiety, breathing is like a ridiculously important tool that I think nobody really pays a whole lot of attention to, just because we breathe naturally. But the secret is that most people don't breathe properly. So it's really, really important to, just in a quick version here, breathing out in your nose, out your mouth, making sure your exhale is longer than your inhale, so you have time to kind of decompress and to really relax. And just focusing on taking deep conscious breaths, that's super important. But yeah, if there's anybody out there that really struggles with anything, and they can't seem to find those tools and techniques, you can always feel free to contact me personally through Facebook. And I would be happy to, give my thoughts on it. But I think that place, I think that book, With Winning in Mind, is also a spectacular place to start. I think that it's really, really good. And it gives a lot of tools and techniques that I still use today that I think are really, really, really helpful. So I think that's a really great place to start. And then, like, we live in the age of like endless free information out on this thing called Google. And while sometimes it can be bad for misinformation, if you use it properly, you can find some really, really cool resources at your disposal. So I think that's how I would go about that. It's my long-winded answer as to how to go about that.
What Matt means is stay off of Wikipedia. And when he's
I use Wikipedia for everything, so I can't even say stay off Wikipedia.
Hopefully you didn't use it in your college, as long as you didn't use it in your college career to be a reference to something you were writing. I think it could have been, but yeah. I mean, the other aspect of it is, I kind of chuckled to myself saying, we're talking about breathing and things, and when we're talking about breathing, we don't mean the sigh or the pissed off breathing, like when you whiff a spare, like that's not the breathing we're talking about. We're talking about the breathing that's going to help, control you to be within the moment, as to not miss that spare because of the confidence comes behind it. And I think one of the other things that we do talk about is, on top of it is journaling as well. I mean, that's a big one that comes across in this game. And I think it's important because I think, whether, I'm not saying you have to have a journal out there and write in it while you're competing. Okay. But I think you need to have at least the sit down and reflection in your journal about, how it went, what you think went well, what went maybe poorly. It could be something that you would talk to somebody like myself or Matt or something about afterwards to kind of, openly talk through it and get a second set of ears on it to help, talk through what you were feeling. And it helps to then hone us in on some of the other things that we can do to try and overcome confidence factors or how to zero in a little more sharply on what we're doing. And, I think this is all great stuff. I can sit here and talk about it till I'm blue in the face, and Matt can as well. And again, we've both admitted that we fall to the wayside sometimes, and we don't take the step back and do the things that we need to do in that aspect. So it kind of, sitting here talking about it, even for myself, energizes me to say, hey, all right, I'm the guy that's always in there saying, you have to have short-term memory, and you got to take the good with the bad. But here I am, 2 days after, a poor performance, the first day feeling kind of down about it. And now, I'm on the other end of it where I'm saying, all right, these are the things I'm going to do. I'm going to fix this. I'm going to, I'm going to go in there. I have another one coming up this weekend that I'm preparing for, and we're going to prepare a little differently this time. We're going to go in there with some type of a little bit of different mentality and try to focus in on getting rid of that noise. I mean, it's huge.
I totally agree. I totally think that all the things that you're saying are completely accurate. And I just think that, the mental components of bowling, and just, bowling is also just a really small representation of life itself. So, if you're someone that lacks confidence in bowling, not technically, generally speaking, that's kind of a sign that you just struggle with confidence overall in other areas of life as well. Same thing with anxiety. If you're an anxious bowler, generally you're going to tend to just be an anxious person overall. So working on these things to improve your bowling not only has, benefits for bowling itself, but it also has benefits for just life in general.
Right. Right. Mr. Bandrowski, one of my teammates on a Monday night, asking the question, coming from Long Island, like himself, maybe what's something that you learned or got stronger at after you moved? Interesting question.
Interesting question. Bowling on oil is probably the first answer, because there's no oil in all of Long Island.
I knew he was going to say that.
It doesn't exist. So the first time I left and my ball kept going dead straight, I'm like, oh boy, this is not great. But all jokes aside, even though I'm not really joking all that much, I would say, not underestimating people. Coming from Long Island, which is, compared to the rest of the country, it's a relatively small pond. And I felt like I had become a big fish in a small pond. And then once I started venturing out, I would be like, these don't stand a chance, only to be humbled and to be, face a lot of adversity along the way. So I think, to really be humble and to kind of respect everybody else. There's that corny saying where they say respect all and fear none. I think that's kind of a key too, is, never underestimate your opponents, no matter how wacky or goofy their style is. No matter if they look like Belmo or if they look like they just started bowling 6 months ago. There's nothing, you can't really underestimate other people, and it's not fair to. So that's certainly one thing that I learned. Another thing that I got better at was, and I'm still always working to improve this, is just being better at not talking about people poorly. As weird as that may sound, it's a really kind of toxic trait that I've worked on a lot over the years, and I think it's unfortunately something that's pretty prevalent in the bowling industry, is people putting other people down, people talking poorly about other people. And the irony is that in our sport, it's such a small world. And as a kid, when I was 15, 16, 17 years growing up on the youth tours, and I would tease people and I would talk poorly about people and I would tell people that they stink, like I would be very cocky and arrogant. I learned kind of pretty quickly that comes around to bite you in the butt more often than not. And 5 years down the road, you never know who's going to be holding the cards. You never know who's going to have the leverage or be in the position of power. And so not only from that perspective, you never know who you're going to need to go to for some help or for an opportunity, but also because it's just the right thing to do. And it's a hard thing to stop talking about other people. It certainly is hard, especially when everybody else is always talking about other people.
Yeah,
it's a hard thing.
I couldn't say it any better. And I mean, I try to live by that as well, Matt. And you understand, in the pro shop business, there's a ton of opinions, there's a ton of loyal followers that come to you, but I'm very, very adamant to anybody that comes and visits me that I do not talk poorly about other pro shops, anything along that line. I really don't care where you got your bowling ball drilled at before. If they share it with me, whatever, but you're not going to get me to bite and say something poorly, whether I agree with the way they fit you or the layout they chose for you or thing along those lines. Is that, again, it's a bunch of individual opinions, right or wrong. I joke around all the time. It's like, I'm right. But at the same time, my point to that is that you said the key word there, and it's such a small industry, and not to get off topic creek, but I get asked all the time, like, hey, how do I get on staff with the company, and how do I get this, and how do I advance in that? My answer is pretty easy. It's first and foremost, we're looking for good people. We're looking for the right people. It's not always the best bowler. I'll be the first to tell you that. We're looking for individuals that can, interact and they're good to other people and they want to expand, bowling in general. And I probably get an email every day on average, people reaching out as my brand grows here and asking me, hey, I want to be on Team Pureit. How do I get on Team Pureit? And I look at it and I say to them right off the bat, I say, look, I know every single one of the people that represents my shop like their family. And that's important to me because it's the way I want to do business. It's the way I want my brand to be portrayed. And I want people to respect one another and treat them the way they should be and to grow the darn sport because, man, I love this sport. You and I would not be here talking right now about how to be mentally tough or any of these topics right now if we didn't love this sport so damn much, right? It brought us together. I mean, you're from Long Island, Matt. I'm from Pennsylvania. Our age gap is pretty vast, but we met through this game, and we become friends over the years, and here we are. It's amazing.
Yeah, it really is. It really is, and I think because it's such a small community and such a small industry, you really do have a great opportunity to build amazing relationships with other really cool people that obviously have very similar interests as you. All the people that are in bowling. Nobody's really in bowling to get rich. We're all just really in bowling because we love it. Yeah, big frowny face, right? Maybe that'll change in the future. Hopefully it'll change in the future with more great people that we have. Unfortunately, just how it stands now, right? Whether you're a player, whether you're owning a couple pro shops, whether you're owning bowling centers or operating anything really, it's really, really, it's not about getting rich. It's about doing it because we love it. And I think that's one of the things that makes bowling really, really different is that we have this incredible group of people in the industry that just do it because we really, really love it. Maybe that makes us a bunch of fools. What I do know is that it makes bowling really, really special. So I'm really, really grateful for all those people that do that type of work, that do that stuff, that work day in and day out. And I think it's important. And, you never know what the future may hold.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just looked up at the clock here and, I've been talking for an hour, and it just goes to show you how much we love bowling. People come in, people come out, it's, I know people watch this afterwards, so hopefully they didn't get bored with just me for the first, 15 minutes or so. But, I think some of the content we talked about here is just, it's incredible. I'm really glad that you were able to join me on the program. And, as the first of, I'll tell you many, I'll definitely have you on in the future. Doesn't matter what the topic is. We can both talk, bowling for hours. But the other thing before we run off and kind of cut this off here is that, I talked to, Deep was on the program the other weekend, and, Deep doesn't get the bowl very much anymore. He's pretty much retired, but what I was going to say is, just to kind of throw it out there, Matt, Deep is, when I was out visiting, we said, heck, we're going to bowl that doubles next year together after the girls do their midnight bowlers thing. So what I'm saying is, we're going to push Deep a little bit, but if he doesn't bowl with me, I expect Matt Farber, either one or two-handed of your choice, I don't care, is going to be stepping in there for Deep if he leaves me down to put the shoes on that day and take the microphone off and get a little competing in there. I need one of them young guys to help carry my old man.
Well, Jeff, I'll help you. I'll help you a little bit. I'll do a little bit more here. Is if I'm allowed, I'll bowl both one-handed and two-handed in the event on two separate teams. So I'll be guaranteed to be there with you. And then you can just pick which one you want. Do you want classical, traditional one-handed Matt, or do you want maybe a little bit more spontaneous, a little bit more rough around the edges two-handed Matt? I'll give you the choice, Jeff. And my other partner will just have to deal with whatever it is.
It works. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
But all right, Matt. Well, hey, we've been on here for an hour, and again, great topics we went over here. Thoroughly enjoyed it on my end, and definitely going to have you again soon. But before we sign off here, I'm going to say it one more time. And I've talked to Shane and I've talked to Brian. Now here I am with Matt, another one of the coaches from the Backstage Bowling community. You got to make sure you guys go over there and check out their page on Facebook. they're still offering a 7-day free trial. No obligation after the 7-day free trial. You get a multitude of coaches there between, Matt Farber, Jazz Now, Mike Shady, Shannon O'Keefe, Brian O'Keefe, Flanagan, and then some other coaches that pop in there. I'm as active as I can be in there. And I'm getting coached in there myself. I mean, it's an awesome program. I want to support you guys as you're supporting me in return. And so you definitely need to go check that out. The other thing is, we can't say this enough. Matt, I did not know that you actually ended up getting COVID. So I'm glad to see that you've recovered nicely. And but right now, the bowling centers, the proprietors, the pro shops, the industry in general, they need us right now. So make sure you're going out there and supporting bowling. Everybody's going out there and maybe bowling a couple extra practice games a week just to support those proprietors and to continue to help the youth and the movement of bowling. We say it every time before we sign off, and hopefully everybody's following through on that. And Matt, anything more to add on your end before we sign off here?
Yeah, one really important thing. My hiccups are gone. I think so. Whenever I have the hiccups, yeah, and I'm not going every 3 seconds. And it ended pretty quickly as I joined. So I think whenever I have the hiccups now, Jeff, you're kind of stuck being my guy. And I'm just going to call you and we're going to talk until my hiccups are gone.
Yeah, it works, man. Anytime.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, in all seriousness, I want to thank you for having me on here. I could always talk bowling. I'm like you, Jeff. I could always talk. Everybody always tells me just shut up already. But I always enjoy talking bowling with anybody, especially someone like yourself. So thanks for all of your support for Backstage Bowling. Thanks for all of your support just in bowling in general and all that you do, running events and helping bowlers and just pushing the sport forward a little bit more. We need more people like yourself, Jeff. So thanks for everything that you do. And I appreciate everybody that's tuning in. If you have a chance to go see Jeff at a shop, there's nobody better that you can go out in there and go see. So go check out Pure Bowling, Pure Pro Shop. And that's the Pure Bowling Pro Shop plug right there.
Love it, man. Love it. Absolutely. All right, Matt. I, again, appreciate it, man. We're going to sign off here for the night. For everybody out there, stay tuned. We will have something special tomorrow night. We usually do a Throw It Thursday segment on a specific ball. Tomorrow, we'll probably get a little sneak peek up on there. We got something special there to throw down the lanes for you, but I'm not going to tell you what it is. It's just going to be kind of an impromptu thing. So make sure you tune in. And then, as always, support bowling, and everybody will talk to you soon. Have a good evening.